fixed to connect channels or
fixed away of friends.
Yeah.
And we're not liking that recording. Okay, we'll get started. I will open us up with a prayer. E onore e kore ki tsa tsoi mai o te whenua ka ropa ki nga pang, katoa ngai te atua he ngā karaho, ki roto ki tēnā ki te no māpai. Katongi atu wai roto ki hea te whai e tūtu e mātou, i roto i tēnei e te ākoniti o te Koukou. Amen.
Amen.
And the prayer was to give us some good energy for our Transport Committee meeting for Te Koukou today. We'll get started and go to apologies and declarations of interest. We have apologies to record today.
John Usage.
Let's go much usage.
And you know,
Okay. Councillor Couple for leavings.
and Councillor Cummins.
Okay.
Moved by our
Is Councillor Radich in attendance?
no, Councillor Radich isn't here.
Is he sick?
We haven't been able to get him down, but he just confirmed with governance that he was going to be here, so we're just checking to see where he is.
Thank you.
I've had a mover, get a second. Thank you, Councillor McNally. All those in favour say aye. Mention.
Aye.
All those against, and that's carried. We'll now move to item 4.1, committee member reports. All right, we go to our supplementary report. S1. And those are our previous minutes. Happy to move. I can get a seconder. If you the inspector is anything from the minutes you picked up on. Anyone else on our minutes? It's all right. Favour say aye. Those opposed, abstentions, and that's carried. Now we'll go to item 4.1. The recommendation is that we note Councillor Court's report from our roading committee. So, happy to have you moved that, Councillor Court? Seconded by myself. Okay, this week. Do you like to speak at all to anything over on top of this?
I actually submitted this as my council report, and then when we were doing the agenda preview, Councillor McNally raised some matters that we thought if we moved my committee member over to this agenda, it would allow us to have a conversation about what we're doing to add conflict. And I'd also appreciate the opportunity to brief you all on what we're doing about the Brindouin. We can either take that now or at 4.5 emergency works, so in your hands on that wishes.
It'd be either way.
I'll just start with the Brindouin because this one is quite topical. So I've been for a number of meetings and Steve and his we worship, and Friday a meeting was called in Monterey by the National Road Carriers. So I was there with Steve and our MPs, the CEO of Northport and Calvin and a few others. My notes, no one was happy, but all agreed the work needed to be done. We need to stop requesting it be delayed because a concern has been expressed that it might not even last until Waitangi weekend. What frightened us all in the room was the announcement that the Brindouins only have viable rights for 5 to 7 years left. And all the work that they're currently planning is just to tie us over until a permanent solution is found. Work is happening on the detour routes, but it will be not sufficient. Helen might like to comment on that. It won't be sufficient to make them 100% fit for purpose detour routes. Dr. Shane really is looking into what powers might exist to restrict truck use because this is not an emergency. The truck drivers at the meeting expressed concern that they were facing a 70-kilometre detour, which adds 30 to 40% to their costs. So our MPs were going to see if it was possible to reinstate the resilience fund. Norman Collier, who is the project manager, confirmed the scope of works will be creating a third lane from Waterfall Corner down to the bottom of the hill by Alex Quarries. He was 100% confident he could deliver the project on time and on budget, noting that in preparing their pitch, they have reviewed 60 years of previous weather reports and measured down to the cubic tonne how much soil needs to be moved. There were 44 interventions in total required to bring the road back to a level of service. Only 11 of those could be done without closing the road. Once opened, southbound traffic will be moved onto the new lane. Northbound traffic will move onto the existing northbound lane, and the existing northbound lane will be closed while the crews move in to work on the underslip. That would take months, not weeks. Of concern to everybody in the room was that the business case, which was shelved in 2017 and which now needs to be dusted off, is not currently dusted off nor funded. Waka Kotahi will be seeking money from next year's National Land Transport Fund to do that. Under Q&A, the cost of the business case was not known. It could take 12 to 18 months. The reality is that we will not have a division for 10 plus years. This brought us back to the 5 to 70 year lifespan conversation. Clock is ticking faster than we can react. To which I bravely said, we are the only place on the network that's been told that our network will expire in 5 to 7 years. We cannot afford to sit and wait for the normal processes to play out. If they could beg, borrow and steal to get State Highway 25A open, then we need the same consideration here. Grant and Shane will take this up with Waka Kotahi. And that's all I want to read from the notes. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Councillor Cook. Very sobering indeed. And just at least, well, one good thing that I take away from everything is that we finally have a government that has focus. So let's get them sworn in, get them briefed up so that they can start making some real decisions across these things for us. It's scary, to be honest. And what we need is just like in an emergency, right? We need the people of the farmers to know that we understand what's going on and we have plans in place to be able to address the challenges. And so what I'm hearing is that we don't have the funds to appropriately plan, let alone do the work itself. So we're definitely starting off on the back foot of it. So we'll have to just keep pushing on that, and it's great to know that the real about HP, one of what's will be getting it for that.
Yeah, the only other thing I'd add, and the only thing I noted was the Satellite 1 has 4 sections, and the staging has the investment priority for the Green Durham. Fortunately, it's the first of the thinking what we're to online. And then if you have a look at the coalition agreement, there's a few things they've said and bear with me. The first one, this is because there's 2 agreements, one between national and active, one between national and the first. And the first There's a heap of them, but, build infrastructure with 13-year roads of national significance and 4 major public transport upgrades. I'll just focus on the roading, but recognising federal recreation infrastructure, it was prioritised over expenditure on consumption. Next one we get to roading. Infrastructure, energy and natural resources are referred to. Prioritise regional and national projects of significance. Facilitate and procure funding for regional and national projects of significance. Prioritise strategic infrastructure to improve the resilience of heavy industry and government. Then one they say, commit to building a 4-lane highway alternative for the Green Newlands and investigate the use of private finance to accelerate construction. So that might supersede some of the discussion we had the other day. And that'll be an area will be fast track. There'll be no involvement. So as my understanding, that will be wait till this morning and we'll give it more of a text, and if you go online you can find that. There's some other stuff. Yeah. Which are compared to the ones that are very easy. The best detailed business case for right off the part and point to set a domestic and international shipping needs and to support our Navy vessels investigation funding options, including commercial partnerships. So looking at investment. And the only other one was reduce core ground expenditure. I don't know, that's a complex, but it's probably a message for us.
Yeah. Thank you, Councillor McNally. Any other members online or in the room who'd like to speak to this information on board? Councillor Court, would you like to reply?
No, I'm just concerned, and I had messaged you privately, Michael. Sorry, Your Worship, that I'm still not convinced we're speaking with one voice of the region. It's really, really important that we do. Yeah. And I think that's something that you're going to take up there on the hospital and ensure that we're telling Wellington what it is that we want to know.
Absolutely. Can you put this on both in favor, say aye. Those opposed or abstentions, and the motion is carried. And then I'd like to 4.2, our community board footpath program update from 21 to 27 on page 17. No, page 18. I am happy to move this recommendation for our community board, secondly by the administrator for me. We have staff along as well, welcome. If there are any questions, other questions, thanks on this one. Administrator. Do you want us to consider the report?
Introduce it quickly and introduce one of our staff who hadn't seen me go ahead. So this is Rachel Mannion. So Rachel is our capital procurement lead. So we've some Greek's team projects. So this statement was following a request of last month's Transport Committee on the status of the community footpath programs both this year and next year, and timing worked out well. So Elizabeth's been talking to them. So I'm going to.
Thanks, Calvin. So through the chair, I'll take the report as read. The only update I really have to share was, as Calvin said, last week was my whirlwind community board week on 3 boards, and no changes to their proposed 24-27 footpath program from what you see in the report. Again, this is predicated on the receipt of a similar amount of funding as we received in the 21-24 LTP. And I think at this point in time, nobody is certain what that funding will be. So again, that assurance to the boards that if funding comes in greater, let's hope so, or a larger subsidy from Koukou, then we're hoping they have the opportunity to go back and add projects or reprioritize. Happy to answer any questions, Rachel, in regards to the 21-24 program and how we're tracking on that, or myself in.
Thank you for that, and welcome, Rachel. It's great to have you in our chambers today. Deputy Mayor Stratford.
Just trying to understand the concerns that were raised at one of the meetings. I think it may have been the Bay Islands Fund or one, but it sounded really bad. One of the members was talking about the movement of I think it's the TT one. Was it originally in an earlier year?
So through the chair, the community board prioritized projects that exceeded available budget. So we have a list to move to. T is part of the 21-24, which allowed us to do some preliminary design and some investigation to further refine our costs. There was concerns because of the width of the road reserve in that area. Footpath would need to be placed outside the reserve onto private property. We met with community last Tuesday evening, thanks to Roddy for arranging that, and had a really good with community members in talking through the proposed plans and the need to gain permission to construct the footpath over private land. There's still work to be done, but no objections to that.
But was there enough? So there wasn't enough budget in the 21 to 24 period anyway. So it needs to actually report to 27.
That's correct.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you. The open to other members. Councillor McNally.
Yeah, I'm a bit confused. If there wasn't enough budget, why are we carrying forward stuff? So if you just hang on. If you look at the Hiku, it looks like it's 3.27 million was coming out and you spent 1.4 of it, carrying forward 1.8. So you spent 43%. That one's gone around 4 million. Spent 30%. Like we're getting a 4.3 million spent 20%. Is that correct? Why are we carrying
through the chair, that's not actually correct.
why has it moved to 24%?
Through the chair, the original programs were based on receiving a 69% subsidy, so the budgets were 3 times the initial LTP budgets were 3 times the value that was actually subsidised. But there's no subsidy came available because no subsidy came through. So the process is that once the budgets are confirmed, we sit down with the community boards, we identify what projects of their prioritised list can sit within those budgets. We have a program that fully extends the 3 budgets for the three yearly budgets for 21-24 for the 3 wards. The move to is the balance of projects that are unable to be funded in this period that now have to be moved into the next period and await for funding decisions. So it's not that the work hasn't been done, it's that there was no budget to do it.
Thanks, Carmen. And through the chair, if I can just add on to that, as we were prioritizing our list at the beginning of 21, we grossly underestimated what the construction cost in 2024 would be. We were able to get through less of the program than we had before. We say that's.
Yes, yeah. Escalation was a lot more than originally anticipated. Staying through all of our works.
Which has been accounted for in our current bid to the national interest.
The cumulative escalation over the 3 years is somewhere in the vicinity of 60%. So like for the first part of our LTP bid across the board, for what Koukou acknowledges that, and then the baseline is separate renewal.
Councillor McNally, was there anything else where you will go to community board chair board?
Oh, thank you, Mimoko. Just wanted to thank Elizabeth Stacey for all the hard work she's actually done with the community board, because as you can imagine, every village and town wants a footpath done. So it's been, and also hats off to the board members for working through the process. But just for clarification of council and those listening online and our councillors, just our priority from the community board for the next triennium is actually Te Tii Road number 1, because they're not in order of priority. Secondly, above that, just to clarify, the State Highway 10 Waipapa is State Highway 10 Waipapa Loop Road to Pangairi. It doesn't actually mention that on there, but just so you know the area. And our third priority, of course, is Wera Road, State Highway 10 Airport, which will be phase 1. Just wanted to clarify those points. Thank you very much.
People there, share the board. Any other members?
Can I just have got another question? So how much are you asking for? What are you proposing? It adds up to about 7.2 million across the 3 lots. There's here that the activities that we complete within existing and approved council budgets. Yet we're looking at the LTP 24-27. Of course, we've approved that yet.
So, through the chair, the 21 to 24 program is fully funded and approved. That is through the community board footpath program. The programs that have been put together for 24-27 are based on historic budget levels that have been given by council to each community board on the assumption that we will get subsidy. What happens is through the LTP process, as council make the decisions on what funding is available for the community boards, and as we receive the feedback from the NLTF on what subsidy we achieve, based on that being confirmed in September, we will come back to council in October 24 with the finalised budgets. That then requires a going back to the community board saying we now do confirmed budgets and these will be agreed on within programs. This is part of the planning process as opposed to anything yet approved. So the idea is to provide elected members with where the community board's thinking is in terms of their priorities for footpaths if they get those budgets.
And so the projected spend you'll have, that's sorted by end of June next year.
Those in 24, 21 to 24 will be completed this financial year.
Because if you make the assumption that the local share level will be 1.47 per board, you're short on every one of them.
So all indications at the moment to deteriorate with, had we got no subsidy last time, you can expect to get a large level of subsidy increase this time. But again, there is further projects within each of the community boards list that we would go back to and hang if we basically have to go back to each community board once the budgets are confirmed and have the program completed. What we try and do here is have a program that, noting that a large portion of this is local here and it's community board driven. We had somewhere to start from in the 3-year program, so we're not delaying construction.
So as Belinda was mentioning earlier, the property needs to be set out pretty well. So they haven't already done it.
So that was the list of the second side last week. Each of the community boards stating it's all listed in the program.
Yes.
You will go to councillor Boy and then councillor. Councillor Boy.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Moko, and thank you to the staff for bringing this report. I share Belinda's sentiments. Elizabeth Stacey does a great job, and we're lucky to have her actually come in person to the community board in Koukou. So we really appreciate when people do come and see us up here, and if they can get to us on the roads, as been identified about the huge resale program that's been happening on State Highway 12. And just in terms of the footpath program, and it's been highlighted about the 3-year delivery cycle. I wanted to query our procurement processes for our council compared to the other 2 Northland councils, and if we have a similar approach and are using the expertise within the NTA to ensure we have those efficiencies. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, when I took out one of my earpods, that was sounding like C. Sorry about that. So that was one question to the NTA, and The other question I had was around renewals, and I've asked for that for the 3-year program of renewals for our footpaths, because what we can do in the community board is if we know those in advance, we can add on to those so that we can have, for example, an upgrade to a shared path width if we knew where those were in advance, to align with our 3-year planning cycle for new level of service for our community boards. And we have asked for that previously from the community board, but we are yet to be provided that in advance so that we can forward plan our 3-year cycle of footpaths. So that was the second thing. And lastly, in terms of the new priorities for the current government, it's been highlighted that they're going to reduce spending on shared paths. So, so I don't know what that means in the context of the far north, where we are not urban, and previously where mainly Whangarei was the winner when it came to funding in the urban area. And I think as a district, what are we going to do in order to lobby to recognise that we don't have basic infrastructure like footpaths like urban areas do, and how are we going to address that long term for our communities if that type of funding is going to be reduced or removed? So 3 things there.
Based on procurement methodology.
Procurement methodology, hopefully I'm answering your question. It's the way we procure our footpaths and the fund is very similar to what we do for all other procurements across Northland. We are governed by NZTA's rules and procurement requirements, so we follow those for all our procurement processes. That's all very similar.
Just to elaborate on that, I think you would have seen a number of our footpath packages come through as packages as opposed to individual footpaths, and part of that's about the improving efficiency in the procurement process.
Does that answer your question?
So that's a yes, we do it exactly the same as Whangarei and Kaipara do it, is that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah. Great, yep, that was that question.
With respect to the renewals program one, I know we've had discussions of how we can get those through. One of the constraints of the renewals program is determined annually, whereas obviously the program is determined on a 3-year cycle. But we will take it away again and have a look at the maintenance team about how we can better align those. And because there is opportunity with a draft funding standards currently within the renewals funding area, that where it makes sense, they will look at providing subsidy to upgrade the width of renewals, which they historically didn't do. And Elizabeth.
I think the other piece is by the community boards prioritizing this longer list and us knowing what they're going to do for their new footpaths gives our renewals team the opportunity to marry their work up. And a good example is Rawene. As we come in and we close those gaps to the hospital, they're coming in through the renewals program and widening out existing footpaths. That's an example.
And the big one, I can't comment except to say that even under previous policies, we struggled to get funding, subsidy funding for some of these footpaths. So I don't see it getting easier.
Thank you. We'll go to Councillor Cook.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just don't think it became quite clear enough in the last conversation that Waka Kotahi have announced that they will not be adopting the National Land Transport Plan until September next year, and that's for the change in government. So the new government will inevitably come out with a new GPS. So although these footpath figures sit in our long-term plan, we will not be getting an answer out of Waka Kotahi, although the NTA will probably get enough of a steer whether they're around. We won't get a definitive answer until 10 months from now, whether or not these pathways are going to be funded. And if they are not funded, then Elizabeth comes back to the community boards and we have a whole public conversation. The community boards might then say, well, actually based on that, we now want to do X, Y, Z or something else. I just don't think that came out quite loud and clear for our community board members online. That nothing about this is locked and loaded yet.
I just want to have some assurance that we will have time when they're, but last training, when the GPS changed, we were rushed without very much time to read the big how many pages there was of technical information that elected members had to digest to make a decision on whether we scrapped something in the roading budget because it didn't get funded and fully fund something else, or you know, all the options. We need enough time. We need to really we've seen the impact of that in our roads the last 2.5 years. So we need to make sure that we get workshop time and we get and I know it's not it's not ETA's fault, but we as elected members need to take responsibility for that, managing that information when it comes and committing to workshops so that we can, or help whatever we need to make sure that we make the right informed decision to ensure that our roads don't get worse. I mean, if it comes down to it, if we don't get any funding for footpaths, we may have to make a serious decision about not funding footpath and putting our share into roading maintenance, drains and water saving. That's what I mean.
Thank you for that, Mr. Minister. And I think I've been noted.
I think through the chair, that's probably the relevant thing to that is the discussion we've had about the timing risks.
Yes.
We will get an indication of the potential continuous program in May. And saying that last cycle we got a notification in May which indicated quite a dire picture, and then they got the $2.5 billion loan, which changed the landscape again. I think between September and October, November, when we come back to council, with council being clear in the LTP priorities through that LTP process, that will then inform staff's recommendations. But we definitely note that the workshop will be more valid. We just need to make sure we've got that in us to make sure that we don't end up going through to November, December and not finding us in the budgets. So but definitely understand that there's you go through an entire LTP process and we in parallel go through the NLTF process, and then you get to the end of it and almost have to start again to match things up. So it's about being clear in council's objectives through that LTP process. So we use that as our baseline for our recommendations.
Can I just comment on what DPU did? The buckets are not interchangeable, non-interchangeable at Whakakotahi and they're not interchangeable here. So we have Whakakotahi have a bucket of money for footpaths and capital. They can't take money out of that and put it into maintenance. Equally here in Chambers, if we had money for footpaths and LTP for capital, that's rated the year after it's spent, whereas maintenance, renewal, it's rated in the year it's invoiced. So they're not interchangeable. So the kind of conversation that the deputy mayor is talking about need to happen before we adopt LTP, so almost too late.
So
there is a massive disconnect between the way local government construct the LTPs and the way the National Land Transport Fund responds to that. It always has been. Don't have the answers there, but it is something that government needs to turn their mind to.
I just think that, we as elected members need to make it clear what we want. If the funding goes one way, we want to be able to interchange plan B out ahead.
Or if we don't get any bigger for footpaths,
Yeah.
potentially decide not to. It's our program and our rate.
Yeah.
I do see Councillor Porter's been ever so patient with the head of a second going. As soon as everybody's having a second going, why not? We jump over to you.
Sorry, were you saying, Moko, that I can ask my question?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. You know, it was just to help us in our long-term plan deliberations. If we forward plan that we don't think that we're going to get subsidy, which seems apparent for footpaths, and we still want to do footpaths but unsubsidized, the question is, in terms of that going forward, would we still attract the renewals, etc. funding? Are the renewals budgets for footpaths subsidised? And how would that work if we decide to do it unsubsidised? Because we're having that discussion about doing, you know, what works we can do unsubsidised and how that works going forward in terms of the fire rate.
I'll get Jeff to potentially add to this, but I believe it's very similar to the unsubsidised seal extension, that the upfront capital investment is the cost of council. And with seal extensions, for example, the second coat seal is the responsibility of council. But then once it becomes an asset on the council network, that is entitled to the maintenance and renewals funding that goes with anything else, very similar to a subdivision that's vested to council.
Yes, through you, Your Worship. It's very the same rules that apply to a subdivision development. The council expects a subdivider to develop the roads and then do a second coat seal before he hands them over to council to be vested and for us to then take over the maintenance. It's the same expectation that the NZTA take from council. So if the council creates a new road, it expects it to bring it up to the second coat seal standard, which is the completion of the building of the road, and then it becomes a subsidisable activity for the ongoing maintenance.
The footpaths are the same. If we build the footpath, then they become
such maintenance becomes subsidised, but because the footpath is slightly different in that you don't need a second coat seal. It's just with roads, when you build roads, you need a first coat seal when you build it, and then the second coat seal. So it's like painting a house. You do undercoat and primers, and then you finish it off with the top coat before you paint it finishes. And then it's the same process with roads. And they're just saying that they shouldn't have to fund the cost of the second coat seal. As a council, we don't accept that from developers.
Felicity's councillor Foy's specific question was the footpath renewal. So but for those, once we build it as a standard asset, it is then, if it's built as unsubsidised, it is then available to have maintenance funding.
Yes, so the renewal funding for footpaths is a subsidisable activity, but it's just the creation of new footpaths. And it's not that they don't say we can't do it. They're just saying that the amount of money they have across New Zealand to fund everything. They are prioritising, and as saying, in our case, the footpaths we applied for last year, didn't go on, it didn't qualify this track their funding because they didn't have enough to go within the country. And it was because footpaths became subsidised just before the last LTP. So across New Zealand, all councils were coming in and trying to do larger and larger footpath programs at the time for the first time. And so the amount of money they had put in their pot to fund footpaths wasn't enough to do.
Thanks for that. That's actually quite useful to know that we won't get pinged for looking at ourselves. Like, tourism infrastructure funding, we get capital investment from central government, but then every time we build a toilet, there's 20 grand in maintenance that our ratepayers have to pay for. What I'm hearing is that for the footpaths, if we don't get any subsidies from central government, but we 100% share, we will, for the maintenance of those footpaths, those get subsidised them.
It does, however, come out of a local pot, so we've still got to spread that.
I'd be very surprised if a very new concrete needed any maintenance. I'm very long time.
All right, we'll put that to a vote. All in favour say aye. Those opposed or abstentions, the motion is carried. We'll now move to item 4.3, seasonal speed limits process. Elizabeth, you're still in the hot seat with us. Was there anything you wanted to add before we move in the debate?
No, thank you, your worship. I'll just take the report as read and if there's any questions.
Thank you. I'll look for a mover for this one. Thank you, Deputy Stratford, the seconder. Thank you, Councillor Kapa. Deputy Stratford.
The reason for this paper is here is because of the Orcs road that goes from Okiato to Russell, and hundreds of people wanting that speed reduced. And I was trying to get the speed reduced temporarily over summer. In and out bylaw, we could have done that if we had consulted. And we really don't have time to consult now, unfortunately. My issue, with the fact that we're unable to do anything is that, we've had a dismal, summer season last summer, and then the prior couple because of COVID. Now we've got a real onslaught of cyclists and walkers coming into Russell, and traffic. I mean, we've already had, in Elizabeth, you would have seen, the Labour weekend that the ferry line has started already, and we're going to that's going to continue to happen on both sides, Okiato and Okua. And that just shows the volume of people going over to Russell, because it's just the jewel in our crown. Sorry, I'm sort of boy. And we've got Te Aroha walkers walking along that's not even state highway, along that highway. And there's one police officer if we're lucky in that town. So I'm just highlighting the risk that most of that road is 100 k's, and people go, when the speed limit says 100, they're not going 100, they're going more than that. And the road is so narrow, the roads are so curvy, and there's walkers and cyclists, because we've got this really awesome walking track with boardwalk and the cycling track being installed. So I just want people to realise that. I feel, when we it's weird you get a call that somebody's died on that road. I said, another death's going to happen on the road. And I know Australia that have happened in the last 20 years. And I just don't want anybody else to die on that road. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Campbell.
Nothing further to you can't just think of what the Walkway has expressed, particularly around the use by our cyclists, in particular these that are from out of that area and state of years.
Thank you. We'll go to Chair Ward.
Thank you, Mayor Moko. Just following on from Deputy Mayor Stratford, it would just be remiss of me not to actually comment on our lack of ability to actually implement something for the Okiato Russell area, safety-wise, particularly after last week's workshop on health and safety. I sort of sat back and thought, gosh, as a council, we could have done something about this. We did have, as you know, a submitter come or a couple come and speak to us when we did the Kirikiri speed review over on this side of the water at Opuapai here, and they were unaware of the issues surrounding the fact that Russell and Okiato would not be done until the Tutakaka coast review was done, which was very disappointing. But I think the fact that they did make a submission at that time and pointed out the health and safety issues, that it's a lesson to be learnt here from us all, that we did have lead-in time and we could have worked harder with the powers that be to actually implement something for this summer season. So just to express my disappointment there, and hopefully everybody can stay safe, particularly the pedestrian issues, traffic issues over on that side for this summer. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Belinda. Any other members? Kia ora, Maddie. Councillor McNally.
We just quickly, saying the council next month. If we were into January sometime before it was implemented, or take a lot longer than it's more than a month.
So through the chair, I didn't hear the first, sorry, the consultation. If you were to do it as an own seasonal supplement, 4 weeks would be considered until the local government act a reasonable consultation period. I would hesitate to consult on both the seasonal speed limit and the permanent speed limit for the same location at the same time, noting that this road is part of the Russell catchment, and we will be consulting on that as part of our regional speed management plan for a permanent change in February.
Just the other thing, consultation, that 1 month consultation is only a portion of what the bidding required, then we will need to come back to approve, go through the implementation of the
So
special.
we need to start and all this or something like that. So what we think the maintenance of the fire alarm inspection, especially to do a rolling maintenance program.
Just slow people down. Unfortunately, we do have a moratorium over Christmas on some of those roads, so, yes, but. I think the other thing, even if we were to investigate things like temporary speed limits, you need to then have 400-metre repeater signs, things like that, so it's rather impractical.
We do cardboard cutouts, we haven't got safety here.
So.
No one planes and just park along the road and they slow down.
We're it's not a gazette, we're a temporary speed limit for road condition purposes or anything else. And the repeater signs are to be enforceable, need to be every 400 metres. So that case, if you go through the proper process, you don't need to have every 400 metres.
Not only that, but through the chair, the temporary speed limit, because it's not a change in conditions
Yeah.
for this roadway, it doesn't qualify under an emergency or a temporary speed limit setting.
What is the timeline for the Tutakaka, the regional one?
Yeah, so through the chair, we'll consult on the regional speed management plan for the month of February, 4 weeks ago. Assuming it's adopted by all three councils and the RTC, it will become effective in the next LTP period. And the Russell Tutakaka catchment we've placed into year 1 for implementation. So the regional speed management plan is all that work that's taken to take it then straight into implementation. So we imagine
Next summer.
thank you. Yeah, assuming that budgets are approved in a timely manner and everything is work.
Thank you. As a backup plan, should we go through the process of doing it this summer, tourism one, or that just in case?
Through the chair, I think come July and August, we'll see where we're at, and that's always an option.
I'll put it in my calendar.
Thank you. Put that to a vote. All in favour, say aye. Opposed?
Aye.
That is carried. We're going to go to item 4.4. FNC Chief Protection Activity Update for October 2023 Operations Report. And this has been written by you, Kia. Obviously, I would like to, or somebody has maybe from our contractors, was there anything you want to add? Or you,
No, through the chair, I think just probably the thing we have to identify is the actual volume we've been done at the moment. So just as an indication, the first quarter of this financial year, in FNDC, is a compared to the same period in the last financial year, 8% increase on the volume of work being done, primarily due to conducive conditions, and being able to actually get out there and start to see more road cones and lights out there. On that note, probably one thing to highlight is Rachel, not this Rachel, but our other Rachel, who leads our corridor access team, has been successfully placed on the North as the North Island Local Council representative on the temporary traffic management board. So she is leading the way in terms of the consultation and lead out in terms of the temporary traffic management and the space approach to how we can use those learnings and bring them back to Auckland to try and get some safer, more efficient setups of traffic management.
For that, I'll ask for reasons for this recommendation to receive the report. I'll move second up. Councillor Galley.
Sorry, through the chair, one more, is probably just the risk to the transport choices funding that is highlighted in that report. So we were notified by Waka Tasi, which I think that email has been circulated to elected members, that based on indications from the incoming government that this may not be a priority moving forward, and there may be reallocating some of the funding, that any unsigned or confirmed agreements would go on hold until they got that direction. Unfortunately, while Far North and Kaikoura had focused on their half of the agreement, it hadn't been executed by Wakatāne because they were bundling everything together. So we now are awaiting confirmation of what is happening in that funding space for that funding of those projects. Those projects are bringing forward other projects, bringing forward projects that are in future LTP years. So it's not that they get lost. Even if they don't proceed, it means that we have designs in the drawer ready if there is some form of funding to tourism, infrastructure, or development funds or anything else that comes through. But we'll keep council up to that with it.
And thank you. I have a question. I still think because things are great and I don't know how many emails I get a day about the roads and what are you doing. Actually, here you can see what's been happening. And I just wanted to check in how closely yourselves work with our staff to get the subsidy for them. These monthly rating reports, we've only got some lists on our website. So that needs to be updated, please. And then all they started doing those pictographics of like a snapshot, and we've got up to September. So we're starting December this month, and we've got October. So I'm hoping that we can get all of the reports from August through to October put on our website. These full reports, please, and then also get into this pictograph things done for October now.
Response to the first one, I'll chase that up because part of the process is I copy in the comms team when we send this through, and that is to get those reports up. This I think they have time them to put the report up when the agenda was done. So I'll follow that one up. The pictographic I sent them the bullet points last Monday, so it should be very close to getting there for updates.
Cool. I think it's the best. Councillor McGilly. Happy, thank you. I can see Chair Wood is there, hands up.
Oh, was that me, Moko? Sorry. Yeah, you just a question for Kelvin. it's really good getting, you know, these operation report and also, you know, knowing the proposed works and delivery. And we actually have a really active community board Facebook page. And one of the queries, and this is probably the dumb question and ignorant question of the day, but you list things in alphabetical order, and it's really not very helpful for us at community board level when it comes to our comms, because ignorance or not, we don't know where a lot of these roads are, and it would be really helpful to have them in ward areas so that we could actually celebrate the operational and deliveries of what we're actually doing. It's not that easy for us to all go through these roads, and some of them are very similar spellings. There might be just one or two letters different in them, and sometimes we think it's in our area and it's actually not at all. So just a question really from community board level. It would be really awesome if we could have things separated into wards, but I don't know how difficult that is from your end, Kelvin.
Before you answer that, Kelvin, because I passionately opposed to that motion, passionately opposed. I have, in all my years as in the council, that's a lot, tried to reinforce district-wide. And when we start breaking things down by ward, that will just start the argument again about whether one ward fitting more the next section and another. It's not too hard. It's not too onerous. Voting the list, I'm sorry that I'm going to speak against it. But it's not too hard to figure out what roads are in the right ward area. They want to do that.
Through the chair, just to add to Councillor Courts, we generally, from a maintenance and operations perspective, we are funded as a district, and then the funding is prioritised based on network need and requirements. RAM itself, where we hold our actually does, the database doesn't split into wards by nature. So actually getting that data would be a manual task to do if we were to do it. The other risk is the makeup of each ward's assets are different, which means that there are fundamental costs associated with maintaining some of those assets that if you do show expenditure by the ward, it will show a disproportionate amount to Kerikeri because of the cost of maintaining an urban asset versus the funding associated with maintaining unsealed. But the fundamental thing at the moment is we don't hold water classifications within our asset database. At best, we can split north south across the two maintenance contracts without going in manually and assigning every road to a ward. It is problematic data because it's not how the funding is set up either. I do understand the different road names because I struggle with figuring out whether they're from south sometimes when the complaint comes through.
Appreciate the commentary regards Councillor Floyd.
Thank you, Mayor Moko, and thank you, Calvin, to you and your team for this report. I just note that we are now, at the end of November, going into the summer season, and we all know that people love to go to the beach in summer, and we are very blessed here in Koukou to have many of the beaches for all of our district. But that also means we have a lot of pressure on those roads, particularly unsealed roads that go to those coastal destinations and dock campgrounds and those facilities that attract people. So I raised it last time in the workshop about getting ahead of basically the busy season when we know lots of people are going to be frequenting those roads. And so I wanted to know from the contractors what we do in advance to prepare for that. And then also I wanted to know about structures maintenance. So I note on page 52, it talks about structures maintenance, 0 bridge deck. But we have a lot of bridges in our district compared to all of Northland. We have the largest number of bridges in the whole of Northland, and What I'm wanting to know over the summer season is what inspections we're doing for all of our bridges, because if we don't know what renewals and what risk we have for our bridges without inspecting them, and do we attract subsidy for those inspections for those bridges so we know the forward planning for them, because I think there's about 50 bridges we needed to renew in our last discussion over the last year. And then lastly, about our drainage maintenance and renewals, and I really like what they did in the Southern contract update. But in the drainage maintenance renewals on page 51 from our summary from Fulton Hogan, it just says like a number. And we don't know where those are, like 220 meters of culvert pipes replaced. I do know that we have to clear within 2 meters of the culvert ends in the contract for all of our culverts, and I personally don't know if that's been done and where that's been done and who's monitoring that. But if we're paying for it, we should be ensuring that it's done, and if it's not been done, then the contractors are accountable to us. If we're paying someone, they need to do it. So can we please get an update about how that's been monitored? Because obviously the works will need to be done over summer to ensure it's ready for next winter. Thank you.
Welcome to the table.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, so through the chair. I'll kick off in order. You've raised these, Councillor Foy, so grading, just to kick that one off. We are very quickly approaching conditions at the moment when the grading activities actually start to have a detrimental impact on our networks. The roads are very quickly drying out. If we continue grading for too much longer, we do end up with encouraging corrugations and other issues that are less than desirable. What we do ahead as far as planning for our summer months is we change our approach to grading from a priority-based inspection-led process to more of a blanket grade approach to make sure we get around the full network over the course of about a month and a half, 2 months that process takes. We do have a number of other roads that we know historically do give us issues over the summer period. So we try to address some of those with what we call a wet grade roll approach, which is where we actually get a water cart and roller onto site as well to assist with the grading activities. That is quite a costly process, so unfortunately it's not one we can deploy across the whole network, and we do really have to restrict and target that. As far as the structures, we do, over the course of the 2-year period, complete a full inspection round of all structures within the district. So it's split half of the structures 1 year, the remaining half the following, and that's a reoccurring process. Through that, the inspections identify a list of both what we deem maintenance renewal defects that we distribute directly through our maintenance contractors to complete, as well as a list of any significant repairs, renewals, which are generally packaged up and delivered for our capital works programs. So we do tend to be aware of most minor issues on bridges before they become more significant. With the drainage renewals, noting your comment there, I will talk to our contractors about providing a bit more detail around where these works are occurring. We do deal with somewhere in the range of 2,000 to 3,000 individual work dispatches every month. So each of those will be related to a road, a location, a issue. So we'll try and give just a broad idea of the areas, maybe that the contractors are actually working in with those targeted activities, if that helps. Was there more to that drainage renewals question, councillor, or did that answer it?
probably just the one thing. Your
Well, it's
point-
just the granularity. So we weren't given the list of the roads that you're going to water and roll and the forward program for that. We weren't given the list of the bridges. There's just, you know, high level statements. If this information can be provided, then we know, you know, what's been done. And the last one is about, you know, the culvert ends and which roads they're going around. You know, we've got 1,650 kilometres of roads in the north and south contract. Can you just tell us these are the roads that we're going to clear the culvert end walls in, so that we know that it's been done, or else we don't. It's just a general statement. The last thing about our unsealed roads is we were going to monitor the dust over summer so that we can assess the amount of dust that comes from the Centre of Excellence upgrades, and compare that to tar sealing of roads. And so we could look at the opportunity cost of doing those works versus sealing, just to make sure that that has been done over summer as well.
Yeah, through the chair, with regards to the wet grade roads, I will talk to the team and get a list out of the roads we have planned. There will be some that aren't in the plan that we may be able to pull into program. It's really dependent on how we see these roads, change as we lead into summer. The structures program. Again, I'll talk to the team, probably a strategy and planning team, and see how that information may be able to be distributed. And with regards to the culvert ends, for the majority of that work, it is inspection led, still through our maintenance contract. So it is works that aren't necessarily presented to us in a program on a monthly basis. There is an element of that delivered through our audit works program when we get outside of the routine clearance, and we'll look to include a little bit more granularity in our programming through to this committee for that. With regards to the dust, the PM10 monitoring, I have been in discussions with the Northern Regional Council. NRC, we're not looking to proceed with any PM10 monitoring this year. However, they are now looking at a couple of targeted roads that we've identified, where this side of summer we will get an indication of what we'd call standard conditions, and post summer we'll be doing a COE page green treatment and retest, so we get it both pre and post. Unfortunately, they can only look to establish that PM10 monitor. They've only got one to service the northern area across 3 to 4 roads. So 3 to 4 tests for the entire summer season.
I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to respond to what you said about the culvert ends and it being inspection led, they're not doing it. And you have to clean the ends of culverts with a machine. So you actually have to get a little digger out. So they can't just do it with a grader. And no, they're not going to come out and clean one culvert end with one digger just because a ratepayer puts in an RFS. They do like a whole road. So what I'm trying to feed back to the NTA is it's not being done. And it has to be done over summer to be ready for winter. So the inspection-led inspection of culvert ends is not working. Please change it.
Through the chair, can I refer back to the paper we provided previously about the drainage deficit? The culvert end clearance within the maintenance lump sum contract is for up to 1/2 cubic metre of removal. We have, and we'll add this into the next monthly report, we have provided contractors with clear guidelines of what that means based on culvert size in terms of what fits what is lump sum. Anything that generally requires the use of a digger is beyond that 0.5 cubic metre, based on these guidelines and everything else, and that is what's falling into what we have called the drainage deficit that we're looking for significant lifts in funding through what Kotahi to actually have a targeted drainage program across the district, where we have potentially outside of the maintenance contract, we need to decide on delivery methodology, but having specific procurement of a drainage activity funded separately to go around and do exactly what you're talking about, to get rid of the backlog. Because as soon as you get rid of the backlog and get those drainage assets back into spec, then it becomes a responsibility of the maintenance contractor to keep them in spec. And that's part of the issue at the moment. There are so many outside that lump sum that we haven't got the order works budget to get them back in. But there is a targeted program on actually making sure that those that are needing to be done, we are auditing to make sure that we are getting our money's worth. We'll provide that notice to contractor that we gave the contractors recently, clarifying our expectations and council's expectations of what is included in the lump sum and what should be done.
Deputy Minister.
Thank you. Just before I just want to touch on dust mitigation. I know we didn't need any, dust suppression last summer because of raining, but we usually do a release on what roads, and I just wanted to make sure that, you know, it's not just a desktop look at which roads could be done, because I know I got feedback in I think it was 2021 saying, why did we put, you know, suppressant next to the pigsty? It should be outside my house. So I just wanted to check up on dust suppression.
Yeah, through the chair. So we are kicking off our dust suppression program in December with the 3 month expected treatment timeframes. That puts us into sort of late February, early March of application. We are working to the same list as previously. As far as the sites being identified through the road sealing matrix. We did identify very similar through previous applications, and we've had that feedback back, and we've refined some of the start and end points through that process. So hopefully there won't be any situations like that this season. We are just currently waiting on any further sites that our forestry operators contribute to. We haven't yet received any lists from them, but I followed up with them at the Northern Wood Council meeting last week. They're aware of the need to get that through urgently.
Thank you for that. I just wanted to acknowledge the in the report it talks about the 1 tier too many, and that was some mural that was unveiled up in Koukou. It's beautiful. And also, we don't, that they've mentioned that fatigue in another report I've seen of theirs, not in this one, is one of their big issues. And Waka Kotahi are focusing on that their campaign Drinking Don't Drive, and I've seen a whole heap of those pop up on state highways. But just highlighting for ourselves as well, elected members, fatigue kills, and I know that we all do long hours, and just make sure you're rested for long drives, everyone. And just touching on what Belinda raised, a bit similar, but when the spelling of the road names is wrong, it does help if there's a town, because Manawarawa is in Russell, but the spelling that's in there doesn't exist, full stop. Then I don't know how Newton Road fits with us. I couldn't find one in the front office. Oh, thank you very much for that, Councillor McNally, because I couldn't find it in the Farnells district, but I'll put town next time. So yeah, I get where Councillor Port's coming from, but for the wonderful Bay of Islands Vulnerable Community Board person who does the posts on social media, who have a massive following, and they post and they interact and they keep things, you know, nice and happy on that page, it would be really helpful if they knew what roads were being done in their ward, and there might be another way that you can report that to them.
Through the chair, just with those tables of capital works, each of those are also shown on the website and the dot map as well. So there is that snapshot of the location. Yeah, exactly. You can see the road.
Do a post on that.
And with respect to road names and townships, we have just been given an updated list of previous road names, not so much the road names, but the townships.
Yeah.
And so we're going to be distributing that. Part of the issue is we need to do an exercise of going back through all the source data of RAND, because a lot of these are taken, but we're also taken straight out of that source data, which actually comes from LINS, and if they haven't got it right, then we don't, with transfers, we don't get it right either. So it's, yeah.
And without the consent applications in front of me, I don't know whether we're just getting less.
Again, yes.
Okay.
So I think our long run average, our 12-month average at the moment is yeah. Yeah, total of 19 received last month gives a 12-month average of 24. This time last year was sitting at a 12-month average of plus 30.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. So we're voting all in favour, say aye. Oh, sorry, councillor.
Aye.
Sorry, I'll retract that vote.
I just want to do a bouquet to the MTA. And these are outstanding. I want to do a bouquet to our contractors. What's really valuable about these reports to the community is just read and state size of our network, the sheer size of the tasks involved. So when somebody hears so smooth, they're right. That's the centre of the universe, quite right. That is the centre of the universe, and they might use 1% of our network. But by not having to rely on the sheer size of the network, really easy to make the value judgments that we're all doing what we're told, because media is doing it. Contractors are doing what we're told. And when you get that thought like this, then you start to realise that there's actually 2,500 kilometres of road. There's over 25,000 culverts. There's over 700 bridges in this country. When you start to put it into perspective to the customer, it's really important that we keep that messaging going. That this is a very large network, seventh largest, larger than the island as a Koukou. Very small rate pay base. Is the network meeting levels of service that the customer expects? No, but I don't think that necessarily means that the whole system is broken, and that's relevant support. And what I will constantly speak against breaking things down into wards and so on, because you cannot have only one part of your army really working. It takes the whole body to work. And one you only might use that much of the network, we actually have neighbours and friends and colleagues and businesses and commerce that relies on the whole thing. So I get really, really uncomfortable when we try and break it down into wards. Thank you.
Councillor Cook. So vote all in favour, say aye. Sorry, councillor Rudge.
Look out, I'm going to tell you this, we're all aware of the large network of roads. Most people living on these dreadful roads, the middle roads, all they want is them to be maintained. That's all they want. They know they're not going to get class here. I hear that same record every time. I'm going back to what you said earlier on about the roads are getting dry. We've had one of the wettest springs they can find off. And they're not getting dry. We're getting heavy rain tomorrow night. And all of next week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, next week. The problem we have with NTO, Hilton Hogan and I have, is maintaining those roads
I live on a metal road. I'm the only district councillor who lives on a metal road. And our road, for instance, Spoons Road, which I'm going to put from now on, is in the most dreadful state I've ever seen in all my years living there. Massive potholes, corrugation, unbelievable. There was an accident there last Wednesday around a corner. Because what actually happens in corrugation in that corner, the vehicle coming from the right-hand side, from the left-hand side, is to come right around to the right-hand side to avoid the heavy corrugation. Fulton Hogan were aware about that road. They were all aware about the massive potholes, and nothing's been done. And I've always asked this question, and it's making me extremely very off. Where are those inspectors? Where are they? Where these NTA inspectors are, I've been told over the last 4 years, there's 2 of them in an area. Why aren't they checking these roads? And I look at council and Fussy Four and all that. I want them to go and have a look at our road, Spain's Road, and have a good look and see what these residents, how many are there? I'll tell you how many there are on that road. Total of 41 on that unsealed road. 41 residents have to go through. I come to these meetings every time. All we do is praise. But anyway, we'll bring that up when we have that other meeting at 12 o'clock or 12:30. We can consider it.
So through the chair, just with regards to my comment earlier around it getting dry up there, we are certainly seeing it getting dry as far as the moisture retention in the pavements. We are, however, also aware that we are still getting showers come through, and we do still have graders deployed out on the network undertaking that grading activity at the moment.
So when's that going to?
They're out there on the network right now. They have been out there on the network continuously, and I can look into Spain's Road specifically for you if you'd like. As far as the inspectors, so we do have a full-time network supervisor up in the Far North Hills area, as well as a full-time auditor. The auditors.
Who is he?
And Gareth is the network supervisor. Gareth Allen is the network supervisor, and Jamie Jones is the network auditor. Just to clarify that, we audit 10% of the contractor's work, because that is to get around the network. The contractors have permanent resources. We use those to do the 10%. You will never see an NTA branded vehicle doing those audits because they are council staff. They are employed by council, as are we. So there's a council vehicle that you will see driving around the roads, not an NTA vehicle. We do not own vehicles ourselves, because we don't have something.
I'm aware of that.
Yeah. So the only time you'll see an NTA branded vehicle is when it is someone from another council coming into a different district, and that's when we put the magnets on. We've been specifically requested to have council presence out on the roads, and that's why we use council branded vehicles.
Almost the those are covering up like.
They're covering. Yeah. So again, Trevor, for example, used a Far North vehicle to come a job in Whangarei. We'll put the NTA logos over the top so that we don't get questions about why is there Far North wagon in the area.
Yeah, but it's NTA that put those 2 officers.
So through
It was through NTA.
So through the chair, both Gareth and those 2 positions have existed prior to the existence of the NTA. So those roles were council roles. Those council roles got brought into the shared service because they were already there.
Before you came in, before NTA started, when we had problems with roads, and I was involved in, I'm not passionate about roads. All I'm interested in making sure that our roads are maintained properly. That's all. So I don't have to get these phone calls all the time. But before, there was no inspectors for the NTA allowed. And they made it quite clear that there will be inspectors in your areas to check the roads. And they'll refer back to Fulton Hogan. That's what we were told.
Through the chair, the contractors complete the monthly inspection.
I know that.
And we audit their work, there is.
We can cover off this forms down our workshops following this meeting. So we move to you.
But just also small before we close. Just before that, we're in a situation, suppose I'm going to close the road. And I know it's going to end up with the police and everything like that, but that's what we've got to now. We're going to close it. We'll fight everyone. That's how bad it's got to. A road that should have been tarred years ago. And it's a pity hit the hard person here because when they had Makarama and everything, they roar through Spines Road. You know what? It's 2 kilometres shorter than going around State Highway 10, State Highway 1. That's what's happening.
We give an offline follow-up of this road in particular, please. And if you can some to the customer experience. Can I just check, did we voted on this paper? So my chair is not Monday, I just.
That's what the debate carried on, that's full vote wasn't.
Okay, we'll put it to the vote, all those traders say aye. Those opposed? Or abstentions, the motion is carried, and we'll go to our final paper for today's committee meeting. Item 4.5 on page 76. Nice and easy, reports are received. Thank you, Councillor Lucich moving, seconded by Julie Shepherd. Calvin, we're taking this as we want to speak to the paper for open up to you.
Thank you. Saying it is really, I'll get Bennett to come back to the table because he's probably going to be able to answer most of the questions. But yeah, again, there is a lot happening in the emergency workspace at the moment in terms of dealing the remaining sites which can be progressed as now that they've had their emergency works assessments. We've included the 2 lists of sites, those that are going to be completed this financial year versus those that are the more complex, longer term 2 to 3 year. It is unfortunate that the press release that got put out, the first sentence of that was up to 75% of the sites are going to be completed in this financial year, and that got put out in the as they're not going to be done for a certain period of time. So the context of that from swallowed. Yep. So we recognise there are a number of kind of, I guess, high profile sites that haven't progressed as quickly as the community would like. Part of the issue with that is that they are complex and changing slips. Bernard does have, for anyone who's interested, paper copies of the designs for the 2 West Coast road slips, to kind of show the scale of what we're actually looking at for those repairs. One thing is around the funding process. So being that most of the work's been done in this last year have been at increased funding rates, what Kentucky are taking quite a proactive view on auditing the processes behind the funding. They've just completed a full audit on FUCRA and have noting that we use the same processes for all 3 councils that expanded their commentary to cover the 3 councils. It's come back that the processes and procedures and what we have included and excluded from emergency works funding is appropriate. What they have found in some other areas is issues of general maintenance issues being brought into emergency works, which ultimately councils going to pay that subsidy. We have not had that experience. And yes, there is, I think, probably the last point is the amount of work that has been done to date. So 3 million work completed addressing 74 drop-down sites so far. 1.5 million removing 238 overslips. 1.6 million investment in clearance or restoration of drainage assets and 1.3 into removing vegetation. That's getting the phase 1 and 2. Now we're into the hard phase 3 stuff.
Thank you for that, Calvin. Just a question, to what tabling these, where it's not gone to any procurement phase, but making publicly available, being assured.
That section of the documents, just providing the design from should be found.
Okay, so these are where it's governance. You also make sure we look back on some taking the West Coast Road, Koukou, Whangai Road, Hong Kong, and West Coast Road. The designs just I think it's helpful for these communities to see that we have got plans in place as it comes down to funding across the community program.
I think the other point to note is because of now that we're moving into this higher value items, we now we need to ensure that we're following proper procurement process and rules. So the procurement process for the under 100,000 was appropriate for direct reward and getting things done. Now we move it above that $100,000 threshold, we move into more stringent open procurement. We are working with Wakataki at the moment to get procurement policy exemption approval that will also bring back to the council to accelerate the next design for about, I think it's 8 to 10 sites in the far north that are the next most critical months. The idea of that is to be using proposing to use a panel of 6 geotech designers across Northland who were pre-qualified. 6 packages, 2 per council, awarded of each value to 1 of each of the 6. So that is to get us started in the detailed geotech design for that field, and then the remainder of sites will go out through open tender recruitment for the balance of the designs. That's really to get that pipeline moving forward so we can we start with these 3 in the far north, and we then have a continuous pipeline where we're going into market for the local procurement for the construction side of things.
And it's just also noting that should that discipline require from us to enable this process or outside of our meeting cycles, then please with the government's team to get an extraordinary meeting cycle so we can just make it. In any case, we'll go over to Councillor Mr. Movers.
Yeah, thanks. I do apologise for being late, which I didn't expect to get here at all, but so I'm sure my apologies at the beginning given. Just on this, I've got a question for you, for Calvin, on this item. These reports, but one of the things that, you know, to put your governance hat on, just receiving putting your governance hat on, one of the thoughts I have is how can we mitigate against these events? It's a non-significant weather events. Now, I can't control the weather, maybe you can, but I certainly can't. So what we can do on the ground are things that can mitigate. So I'm just, my question is, are we, and therefore avoid additional costs? Given that these weather events are likely to be told that they probably can, will be getting worse, is there anything that we do in terms of basic design and infrastructure, like the heater water plants, bigger culverts, making sure they're free of debris and so on? And I'm not the rating engineer. Is there anything that we can do so we can avoid additional events like this and therefore costs?
So through the chair, no doubt Calvin will touch on the drainage steps at paper again, because yes, drainage is certainly a big part of it. Improving our drainage system, you can better protect our networks from these damages. A lot of the damages we've seen, particularly the overslips. We have had an offer through WSP to have a look into our compounding events a little bit further with their geotechnical hats on to provide us a little bit more feedback and level of understanding around the significance of some of these sites. But just to highlight one of the comments they've made, you can see it in some of the photos and we present across that phase 3 complex sites, is that a large majority of these is sidling and fill sites. So it's not just purely down to geologies. These are sites where we've actually excavated into the side of a bencher and deposited the material on the outside edge to form our roads historically. And it's that fill of the material that's moving. So the site there at Koukou being an example of one of those sites. So when you start to look at some of the complex sites we've got within our phase 3 package, there is actually very little we can do other than actively retreating some of these roads to actually avoid these occurrences.
Thank you for that. We'll go Deputy Minister for the Council for.
Yes. It's totally what everyone else has said. I think back to the Waikato Road, and there was a big massive slip a few years back, probably 4 years back. And it took a number of years to be repaired. There's now another one there, a few there. But for communities that are aware of how long the slips take, I'm sure that they're not asking you to hurry up with my road getting fixed. But for all of the communities who are, and this is really repeat in the last maybe, out west, their roads are reputationally, or even through my own experience, their roads are always shit and they feel overlooked. So when they've got a road that has a slip, they feel even more overlooked. So that comms has not landed well. I think we need to do a separate targeted communication or even a hui out west to make sure that the members of the community, the school, know it is priority and the stuff that's being done now and the stuff that we done there. And these are the things that we're doing to make sure that you're not going to be stuck here or the bus is going to go down the side of the road, stuff like that. Yeah.
Definitely take that feedback on board when we're working the com stage. I guess one of the things over the first 6 months post category was making sure that we could take best advantage within the funding rules of the 100% funding available to try and get as much repaired across the district at that 100% funding. What that did mean is some of these complex sites, they've not so much weight, they were still progressing in the background. While they were progressing, we didn't have any answer beyond when we were investigating the design. We now got more answers.
Yeah.
The other thing we're just developing at the moment is, I think we've mentioned it previously, is a interactive TMS map to go on the website. We've seen the first iteration of that for one site as a fin point, which is one of those 3 sites. The idea of that is to actually show the status changes as things are progressing, provide photos to show that we know that something's there. I guess the risk of that is in the Northern Resilience database, and we talked about this post Gabriel, before this event, there was already over 1,000 recorded slips on 1,000 kilometres of Northland's main critical highways. These are in addition to that. So one of our communication challenges is really explaining to the community which slips we're talking about.
Yes.
And at the end of this 2 to 3 years, it's not going to be every slip on the farm. There are others that's still, and we've got some learning somewhere.
I want to hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
Is there quite, I get that stuff.
Oh, I feel like. Thank that. Thanks for that, Calvin. And you just ask out if you didn't need to stop some points in the swear chat as well. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you, Mayor Moko, and thank you for this update on the slips. As Councillor Stratford has highlighted, people do take a keen interest in this being delivered because it's been outstanding for some time. And we all know that we need to do the works when it's dry and over the summer. So what the other feedback that I get as an elected member and as a farmer's daughter from many of the people in the rural community is, why do we let it get so bad and actually slip before we do anything about it? And when I heard Bernard say and Calvin about the geotech engineers, 6 firms. Yes, I know that's a specialist engineering sector, but because we're 3 councils across all of Northland, I would have to question, should we be actually considering having in-house geotech specialists as part of our roading team, not only to do small works for doing the actual small slip repairs and having a program of works. We know that we're going to do slip repairs for our region. So given the scale, and if we look at that table there, the actual cost of that, which is huge, in my view, having in-house geotech engineers as part of our roading team for all of Northland, sharing the cost would be very sensible. The other thing that I would question as well, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. The other thing that I would query as well is, given the scale of this and the cost of how much it is once it actually fails to do all of the engineering works and all of the detailed design, let alone physically deliver all the slip repairs, would it actually warrant, through our operational budget for our district, we would like to pay a geotech engineer to do inspections of our network over the summer season, so that we actually understand the issues before there's winter time where it will slip. So a lot of people, if they see cracks, etc., in their properties on their private land, they would actually engage someone before it slips. What I see us doing in our network is that we wait till it slips and then, oh, now we can apply for funding. People don't understand that we're not funded up front to actually do the inspection, understand the issue and prevent it from occurring. So I would table this with, the elected members here today and actually query that to our NTA staff if that's been a consideration, to have those geotech engineers as part of our team and to pay for them to do those inspections over the summer season, so that we have a list of risk assessments for these areas that could slip, and these are the works that could be done over the summer season to actually prevent them from slipping over winter.
With respect to your first point through the chair and engagement with geotech resources, it's very similar to the engagement of bridge engineers. Often the way to a geotech does not cover all aspects of geotechnical engineering. Same way a bridge engineer does not cover all aspects of bridge engineering. When we've looked at this previously, firstly, the ability to get someone who covers the majority is difficult. Often they go to the challenge of the consultancy companies because they get peers to work with in development and everything else. And that leads into the second part, is we often, if you find someone of that specialist nature, we don't have the support networks of their peers to actually continue their development and everything else. And that's what comes through those kind of the WSPs, the Beckers and the likes. What we are trying to do through this panel process is to make sure that those resources that are based in Northland are staying in Northland, because those companies are getting a lot of pressure from East Coast to send down there and everything else. So it is something that we continuously look at, is there a justification to have that resource across the region? But often having one is worse than having none at all, because they become isolated and you don't quite get the same sort of results. Definitely agree with your, it is hard to find funding for proactive approaches. So probably something that might need to be thought about in terms of LPP discussions.
Thank you. We'll go to Councillor Koukou.
I've been told to stop defending the model and stop defending the NTA, but I'm not going to do that. I just want you to remind Councillor Foy that we had COVID lockdown, and during COVID lockdown, works were really restricted about what we could do on the network. And then we came out of COVID lockdown. And just because there weren't many vehicles on the road didn't mean that the roads weren't deteriorating. Mother Nature was still at play. Then we came out of the COVID lockdown and we had 11 significant weather events. I talked before about Northland having the seventh largest network in the country. But out of those 6 above us, none of them have our challenging geography and geology. Because of those 7 that are above us, one is Whakakotane, one is Auckland, and all the others are in the South Island, and they get the benefit of flat land, easy access to aggregates, and they don't have the weather that we have to face. And then I draw your attention back to my members' report and the slides. In the last 6 years, New Zealand has depreciated its state highways by $2.5 billion, but it's only just spent over $1 billion to maintain them. And then on page 10 and 11, it's not my words, these are the slides that were put forward by the professionals presenting at conference. What is wrong with our roads? Increased vehicle loads, increased deterioration is leading to more potholes, and the frequency of extreme weather events. The assets are deteriorating faster than our renewal rate. Chief Executive of the Council said, I have 100 years of work ahead of me before I think it begins to plan for growth. He said all this to the room full of delegates at conference. We sit here and we seem to think that we're an island separate to the rest of New Zealand, and the challenges are unique to us. They are not. The problems are systemic, and that there has been insufficient funding put into looking after roading for decades. And I know that the roads are in a terrible state, but I have sat here for forever and said the problem is the model, the problem is the money, and until we have fixed those, we're not going to fix the roads. So sitting here having conversations, say, let's just hire an in-house geotech engineer. It's not going to fix the funding model. I appreciate the passion you bring to it. Councillor Foy, I really do. I appreciate the desire of everybody in this room to end up with a better network. But we're not going to get there until we start having meaningful conversations with the Crown. Conversation that I had when I held the portfolio, conversations that the Mayor has picked up, the Mayoral Forum has picked up, Regional Land Transport Committee has picked up, the whole country has picked up, judging by what I heard at conference, that there will be meaningful reform as we move forward. And then, and only then, do I see us getting on top of the deficit in our network and changing the outages.
Thank you for that, Councillor Koukou. Councillor Bessich, would you like a right of reply?
No, I do, just raising my point and speaking to that really. We have to look at ways we can mitigate against these things, and I believe we can. Done it in the past when you did things differently. But we can't go and say, look, it's government, you got to give us the money, because they don't have it. So we can look, we have to look at better ways which we can achieve results. And I think they're actually out there that just mean you need to be a bit creative, constructive, achieve that. So I can give you a list of things that can be done right now. It's a workshop passing.
All right, all those in favour, say aye. Those opposed, or abstentions, the motion is carried. I'll close our formal meeting for karakia and we'll be lunch and then start our kia tauti na makitangi o te runga rawa ki waingangi I tēnei kuikuina hau e hui e whae ki e. All right, for those online, will be as a different link or this link? Different link should be in the calendars for 12:30.
Thank you.
Well, that's the learning smell could be coming from this lights.
That's all different.
Is it?
Yeah.
Someone's typing in something.
Lights up, so then it ends with light. Again, it's just going to be helpful.
These ones need to stay, so you guys will just how much is that? Just say, no, oh, so that's it'll be on Wednesday, actually. Very.
And what they do. Good.
I was gonna say tomorrow, what you think? I'll take one. You start. What's the years?
Right. I want nothing. And so the autograph. Yeah.